Hi guys, this is Taylor, and today I'm doing my first ever official bookshelf tour on this channel. I have done a video about how I organize and catalog my books in the past, but A, that was 2015, and B, I didn't go into great detail about the books actually on my shelves. Is more about the organization. So if you are looking for more of that type of video, I will not be going into great detail here about how I organize my books, so I would perhaps suggest that video instead. Although it is probably outdated and possibly kind of bad. I put out a poll on my community page asking whether you guys would prefer a very detailed bookshelf tour where I show every single book or a more condensed one. The very detailed option did win out by a pretty significant margin, so I will be showing absolutely every book on these shelves. So before we jump straight into the tour, let me just give you a really brief overview of how things work around here. A lot of you will know that I only shelve books that I have read. So my personal reward after finishing a book is that I get to catalog it and then find its place on my shelves. I really like cataloging. So everything on these shelves I have read pretty much without exception, except for my antique books, which I will show you in a minute. Another thing is that I have separated my books into three major categories, which are nonfiction, fiction, and series. And within those major categories, everything is alphabetical by author's last name to some degree. It is definitely not the most aesthetically pleasing method of organization, and believe me, I know, but I mean, I work in a library, I organize books literally as my living. It's really just hardwired into me at this point. It's just how I like to organize. So I think that's all of my housekeeping, so let's jump right into the tour and I will show you every single book on my bookshelves. So here we are. I have three bookcases in my room. And this first one is, of course, the classic Billy bookcase from IKEA. It is really the ultimate bookshelf for book lovers. I am totally in love with it. And then these two are literally like $40 particle board bookcases from Walmart. One of them has collapsed before, like completely disintegrated, so that's fun. I think eventually, once I start running out of space, I will upgrade both of these to the Billy bookcase because they offer a lot more shelf space, but I'm not quite there yet, and these seem to be doing the trick for the time being. So let's start at the top of our first bookcase over here. Up here at the very top, hopefully shielded from the sun a little bit, are my antique books. This is a standard desk dictionary from, I want to say, 1914. This is a collection of essays by Ralph Waldo Emerson. You can see the cool edges right there. And this is my 1818 genuine leather-bound, published in Italian set of the Divine Comedy. They are worth a ridiculous amount of money and are like ridiculously beautiful. And then we go straight into nonfiction. So these are by subject and then alphabetized within very specific subjects, but it's complicated. So just going down the line, we have The Art of Memoir by Mary Karr, Little Soldiers by Lenore Chu, Black Mountain, An Exploration in Community by Martin Duberman, The Fortune Cookie Chronicles by Jennifer Eight Lee, On Immunity by Eula Biss, Harry, A History by Melissa Anelli, Dear Fahrenheit 451 by Annie Spence, The Disaster Artist by Greg Sestero, Sailor Moon and Post-Bubble Japan by John LeCure, Warriors of Legend, Reflections of Japan and Sailor Moon by Navak and Rudranath. These are my 33 and a third collection. I'm hoping to really expand this. These document the creation process and cultural impact of different albums. So I have my beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West and Koji Kondo's Super Mario Brothers soundtrack. Then I have The History of Jazz by Ted Gioia, The Making of Asian America by Erica Lee, Young China by Zach Diekwald, Bending Adversity by David Pilling, Without You There Is No Us by Suki Kim. Killing Dragons by Fergus Fleming. Names for the Sea by Sarah Moss. Drift by Rachel Maddow. Garbology by Edward Humes. The State of Affairs by Esther Perel. Understanding Asexuality by Anthony Boggart. The Invisible Orientation by Julia Sandra Decker. And Boston Marriages by Esther Rothblum and Kathleen Brethoni. Coming down onto the next shelf, we have more nonfiction. We have, oh no, these are really tight. Queer City by Peter Ackroyd. Essays and Poems by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Walden by Henry David Thoreau. Congratulations, by the Way by George Saunders. Speech. And then we have, again, a series I would very much like to expand my collection of. These are the very short introductions by Oxford. So we have Sexuality and, oh my god, these are so tight. I need to fix that. Folk music. Then we move into autobiography and memoirs. So these are just alphabetical by either the author or whoever the biography is about. So we have Karen Chen's Finding the Edge. Alan Cummings' Not My Father's Son. Craig Ferguson's American on Purpose. The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. Memoirs of a Monster Hunter by Josh Gates. I really used to like Destination Truth on the Sci-Fi Channel. You Are Here by Wesley Gibson. Discontentment Civilizations by Mohsen Hamid. Blue Flames 1 and 2. These are biographies of Yuzuru Hanyu. Sounds Like Titanic by Jessica Chichito Hinman. Geisha A Life by Minako Iwasaki. Janet Mock's Redefining Realness and Surpassing Certainty. These are both stupid good. Don't Follow Me, I'm Lost by Richard Rushfeld. Pete Seeger's In His Own Words. Kurt Vonnegut's Fate's Worse Than Death. The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. Role Models by John Waters, and that is the end. And then we go ahead and move into fiction, and I do have books that don't really have an author, so we would consider like anonymous. The Epic of Gilgamesh I have first, and then we move into alphabetical by last name. So, Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. The Head of the Saint by Socorro Asioli. Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian and The Lone Ranger and Tonto Fist Fight in Heaven by Sherman Alexie. Brass by Shanae Aliu. The Blood of Flowers by Anita Amirzvani. And The Assassination of Brongwain Spurge and Burgerwuss, both by M.T. Anderson. Coming down onto this next shelf, we have Feed, Landscape with Invisible Hand, and Thirsty by M.T. Anderson. Then The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I really need to read more of her books. It's just kind of embarrassing at this point. The New York Trilogy by Paul Auster. Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. 5 to 1 by Holly Bodger. Fahrenheit 451 and Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This is the beautiful penguin drop cap. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Weird Girl and What's His Name by Megan Brothers. The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. The Dumb House by John Burnside. The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This is a good example of something that has a sequel, but I don't plan on continuing on with the series, so I'm shelving it as though it were a standalone. Remembrance by Meg Cabot. The House of Impossible Beauties by Jessica Sara. Sleeping Embers of the Ordinary Mind by Anne Charnock. Al Capone Does My Shirts by Jennifer Chalketno. The Night Tiger by Young-Shi Chu. Otis Spotford by Beverly Cleary. Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. The Glitch by Elizabeth Cohen. Sorry to Disrupt the Peace by Patty Yumi Cottrell. Box by Christina Dolcher. Universal Harvester by John Darnell, Wolf in White Van by John Darnell, A Christmas Carol, the only Dickens I've ever read, and The Power of Un by Nancy Etchemendy. Moving on down to this next shelf, I start out with Middlesex by Geoffrey Eugenides, Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evison, Between the Bridge and the River by Craig Ferguson, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, Everything is Illuminated, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, and Here I Am, all by Jonathan Safran Foer, As Simple as Snow by Gregory Galloway, George by Alex Gino, Paradigm by Alan Glynn, Lord of the Flies by William Golding, An Abundance of Catherines, The Fault in Our Stars, Let It Snow, Looking for Alaska, Paper Towns, Turtles All the Way Down, and Will Grayson, all by John Green, or starting with John Green as the first person listed as the author. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. 1988, I Want to Talk with the World by Han Han. This is one of my favorite titles ever, even though I didn't really like the book. The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. Eternal Life by Dara Horn. The Man Who Remembered the Moon by David Hull. Twice Told, this is an anthology compiled by Scott Hunt. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Anatomies and Atlases by Soraya C. Ingot. I'm pretty sure that is a pen name. Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. The Haunting of Hill House and We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. The Boat Rocker by Ha Jin. Stray City by Chelsea Johnson. Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. Human Acts and The Vegetarian by Han Kung, and Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. Down on this second to last shelf, we have some pretty heavy hitters, as you can see. Last Night in Nook by Nivea Corneliuson, Girl in Translation and Mambo in Chinatown by Jean Kwok, The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, Icelander by Dustin Long, In the Year of the Boar and Jackie Robinson by Betty Val Lord, The Giver by Lois Lowry, Severance by Ling Ma, A Mango-Shaped Space by Wendy Mass, Amsterdam and On Chesil Beach by Ian McEwan, Below by Meg McKinley, Confessions of a Mask and Frolic of the Beasts by Yukio Mishima, Anne of Green Gables by Ella Montgomery, Lamb by Christopher Moore, Sula by Toni Morrison, The Elephant by Slawomir Mrozik, and here we go, 1Q84, After Dark, Kafka on the Shore, Norwegian Wood, Splenic Sweetheart, Colorless Sakura Tazaki and His Years of Pilgrimage, Killing Commendatore, Men Without Women, The Strange Library, The Wind, and Pinball 1974, all by Haruki Murakami. For him, I like to keep his paperbacks separate from his hardcovers just because I like the way that these all look together. The Heavens by Sandra Newman, which is newly signed. Thank you, Sydney. Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng, 1984, and Animal Farm by George Orwell, and White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi. And this very last shelf, I am fully seated at this point. Bel Canto by Anne Patchett, Life as We Knew It by Susan Pfeffer, The Beautiful Bureaucrat by Helen Phillips, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, Pish Posh by Ellen Potter, Know Your Beholder by Adam Rapp, Plum Rains by Andromeda Romano Lax, Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, The Brief and Frightening Reign of Phil, Lincoln in the Bardo, Pastoralia, and 10th of December, all by George Saunders. Mouthful of Birds by Samantha Schweblin. The Island of Sea Women, Peony in Love, and Snowflower and the Secret Fan by Lisa C. Before She Sleeps by Bina Shaw. The Merchant of Venice, the only Shakespeare play I have ever read. Sassafras, Cypress, and Indigo by Intisaka Shange. White Teeth by Zadie Smith. Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. How to Say Goodbye in Robot by Natalie Standiford. Crossing by Paitim Statovsky. Treasure Island by R.L. Stevenson. Dracula by Bram Stoker. Swimming with Bridgeport Girls by Anthony Tambakis. The Parking Lot Attendant by Nafkate Tamarat. What We Were Promised by Lucy Tan. The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Journey to Topaz by Yoshiko Uchida. And Kristen Lavren's Daughter, The Wreath by Sigrid Undset. Moving from down there, we then have the End of Fiction on this shelf, and we have Breakfast of Champions, Cat's Cradle, Sirens of Titan, Slaughterhouse-Five, and Welcome to the Monkey House by Kurt Vonnegut. Again, I am planning on keeping my specific Vonnegut paperbacks together, and then this is a different edition of paperback. So this is We Are What We Pretend to Be, then The Age of Miracles, and The Dreamers by Karen Thompson Walker, Family Trust by Kathy Wong, Loner by Teddy Wayne, The Martian by Andy Weir, The Wayward Moon by Janice Wiseman. This is a choose your own adventure book by Nintendo to promote the new Super Mario game for the Game Boy Advance at the time. That's a significant part of my childhood. The Female Persuasion by Meg Wolitzer. Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto. Shelter by Jung Yoon. We by Evgeny Zamyatin. Red Clocks by Lenny Zumas. And I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zusak. So then obviously we have the beginning of my Sailor Moon collection. These are my old Tokyo Pop 90s editions. So we have Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4, Volume 5, Volume 6, Volume 7, Volume 8, Volume 9, Volume 10, and over here, Volume 11. These are all properly falling apart. And coming down onto this next shelf, we have the rest of the series. I know it probably bothers a lot of people to have series separated by a shelf, but this is just kind of the way it works with this organization system. A lot of the times they are, they will be on the same shelf together, and sometimes they just won't be, and that doesn't bother me. We have Sailor Moon Supers 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we move on to Sailor Moon Stars 1, 2, and 3. These Sailor Moons are the more recent reprint by Kodansha Comics, so I won't go over them all, but they are all there, 1 through 12, and then the short stories, the first collection and the second collection, and then the Sailor V manga volumes 1 and 2. Then of course we have the first volume of the Japanese Perfect edition of Sailor Moon, and then, and I will say I absolutely hate the way that these look on my shelves at the moment because there are only 3 volumes out, but once the full set is out I think it will look a lot better. But for now, I will say that I hate how it looks. But this is volume 1, 2, and 3 of the Eternal editions of Sailor Moon. Coming over here, we have these 8 volumes of the, I don't even know what to call them, the Sailor Moon novelizations that were based on the English dub of the 90s anime. They're super Americanized. They're very poorly written. I don't recommend them. And then coming over here, we have what is currently the end of my Sailor Moon collection. These are the scout guides for Sailor Moon, Sailor Mercury, Sailor Mars, Sailor Jupiter, and Sailor Venus. What I really like about these is that even though they were published probably in the 90s, they weren't super Americanized, so they have their names on the back in Japanese. Down on this shelf, we have the end of my manga collection and the beginning of my proper series. So we have all 7 volumes of Tokyo Mew Mew and Tokyo Mew Mew a la mode 1 and 2. And then we just start proper series. So we have Octavia Nothing, Traitor to the Nation, Volume 1, The Pox Party by M.T. Anderson, and its sequel, The Kingdom of the Waves. We have the entire Mediator series, Shadowland, Ninth Key, Reunion, Darkest Hour, Haunted, and Twilight. And then I do have the first 2 volumes of the Princess Diaries series. Every once in a while, I contemplate picking it back up. I just contemplate it. Then we have Things Not Seen, Things Hoped For, and Things That Are, all by Andrew Clements, and The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. One of my favorite duologies ever, Vivian Apple at the End of the World, and Vivian Apple Needs a Miracle, and the beginning of the City of Ember series. And it continues down here with The People of Sparks, The Prophet of Yonwood, and The Diamond of Darkhold. Then we have the My Side of the Mountain series by Jean Craighead George, My Side of the Mountain, On the Far Side of the Mountain, and Frightful's Mountain. Then we have a couple books here that are either going to be a series or they are already a series, but I don't have their sequels or the rest of them yet, but they're here because they are series that I plan on expanding on. So, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green, The Name of the Star, Madness Underneath, and The Shadow Cabinet by Maureen Johnson, and Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones, and Every Day, and Another Day by David Levithan. Then we have the entire Magic Treehouse series. I'm not going to show all of them off, but they are all there up until, I want to say, volume 40-something or 50-something. Yeah, they're here. On the very bottom of this shelf is actually my record collection, which we're not going to go over today, but maybe another day, I don't know. I don't know who that is. Then coming over here, we do have the rest of the Magic Treehouse series, I Wasn't Lying, and of course Harry Potter. So Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix. This bookshelf is shaking so badly. Oh my god. Half-Blood Prince. And, oh my god, there he is. There he is. Deathly Hallows. On this shelf down here, I do have Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and Quidditch Through the Ages, and Tales of Beetle the Bard. Then we have almost the entire Royal Diaries series. When I started collecting this series, I did not anticipate how much space they were going to take up, but there they are. I have Elizabeth I, Cleopatra, Isabel, Marie Antoinette, Anastasia, Nzinga, Kalilani, I think, Lady of Chao Kuo, Victoria, Mary, Queen of Scots, Sondak, Jahanara, Eleanor, Christina, Elizabeth, Witamu, Lady of Palenque, and Kazunomiya. Then we do have the infamous Vampirate series. No further comment on that one, although it does continue down here, and the design and the packaging just gets even worse, if you can even imagine that. Then we have my honestly really pitiful poetry collection, like for someone who actually likes poetry, this is just really sad. The Narrow Road to the Deep North by Matsuo Basho, 100 Poems by Jen Campbell and the Hungry Ghost Festival, The January Children by Sophia Leo, So Where Are We by Lawrence Joseph, Newspaper Blackout by Austin Kleon, The Invisible Ladder, edited by Liz Rosenberg, and The Alphabet Not Unlike the World and Atlas by Katrina Vandenberg. And finally, In Praise of Mountains, a tiny poetry collection that celebrates mountains, because mountains. Over here is just a little jewelry box, and then down here is my, don't know why I'm showing you this, ugly shelf, where usually my laptop lives for the time being. And lastly, on my very last shelf down here are my oversized books, in addition to 2 photo albums. I learned my lesson the hard way to keep my oversized books down on a shelf where they can't completely break the bookcase. So I have the Divine Comedy, 2 like children's Sailor Moon books, Let Your Voice Be Heard, a biography of Pete Seeger, Banjo for Dummies, Piratology, the complete visual guide to Pirates of the Caribbean, another Pirates of the Caribbean companion book, the complete guide to Rocks and Minerals, a Frida Kahlo Paper Dolls book, the official Pokemon handbook from probably the late 90s because it has, I think, 151 Pokemon. Quentin Kelly's Freaking Fabulous. 2 books by the Mythbusters, of course. And then just kind of some magazines featuring people that I like, mostly musicians. And then at the very end there, I just have a couple of photo books by Devendra Banhart, Lauren Dukoff, and yet another book about Yuzuru Hanyu. So these are my bookshelves. Thank you so much for sticking around for the whole thing. This has definitely been a very long time coming for my channel, so I really hope you enjoyed it. And again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye!